the time that Nigeria won AFCON, the 3 times, we have faced Ivory Coast. So I will call them our lucky charm. And I will say this. They are also our destiny helpers.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching or listening to us from. This is the Naija FC Podcast. As always, I'm your host, AyoT, and with me I have my Nigerian football encyclopedia, my reliable co-host.
Like, thanks for joining.
Yes, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, whether on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, always a pleasure to come to you and to talk football. And today, we have potentially the most exciting episode of the podcast that we've done so far. We are going to be talking about the final of the Africa Cup of Nations 2023. Of course, being played in 2024. And this final is going to be between the Super Eagles of Nigeria and the Elephants of Ivory Coast. The first thing I will say is that you see that Nigeria have not reached AFCON final since 2013. It's because they were waiting for us to start our podcast. So they said they would give us the best content to talk about on our podcast. And so that once we started this podcast, Nigeria's in the final. And by the grace of God, we'll win this trophy. But yeah, let's get into it. Smith Layi, let's start by talking about how the team got here, or how both teams got here. We have the Super Eagles of Nigeria and Ivory Coast. Both teams were in Group A. So shout out to Group A. You produced 2 finalists. It's not something that happens often. Nigeria started this tournament with their game against Equatorial Guinea. We held Equatorial Guinea to a 1-1 draw. I will say that because they scored us first. And a lot of people thought, Super Eagles don't come again. Or what are these boys doing? What are they cooking this time? We got to the second game against Côte d'Ivoire that a lot of people saw as a must-win game. Or at the very least, a must-not-lose game. And a Elephants of Côte penalty helped us to get that 1-0 win over them. We got to our third group stage match against Guinea-Bissau, a team that we faced a few times in recent years. And it took an own goal for us to beat Guinea-Bissau 1-0. But we started to see some signs of what Jose Peseiro was cooking with his 3-4-3 formation. We got to the knockout rounds. They drew us up against our neighbors, Cameroon. And then we comfortably dispatched them 2-0 thanks to 2 Ademola Lookman goals. We got to the next round, the quarterfinal. They said Angola, Black Antelopes, they've been playing fantastic football. They have all these quality players. And again, an Ademola Lookman goal helped us to defeat Angola 1-0 in that very interesting quarterfinal match. That took us to the semis, where the game was dubbed the battle for Amapiano, Afrobeat versus Amapiano, between Nigeria and South Africa. A very tense match, a very nervy game, I must say. And we were able to defeat South Africa on penalties after playing a 1-1 draw in 120 minutes of action. This game against South Africa, we heard that some people unfortunately lost their lives during the match. So we pay our respects, to those people. I would say we commiserate with their families, the families that lost loved ones. I think it's never nice to lose a loved one, but to lose a loved one while watching football, it's something that you wouldn't really imagine. But it did happen, so we commiserate with those families. That just tells you how tense that game was for both sides. And then, yes, the win against South Africa helped us to set up the clash against the host nation, Ivory Coast. For Ivory Coast, how did they even get here? They started their tournament with a match against Guinea-Bissau. They dispatched them comfortably 2-0, goals by Seko Fofana and Jean-Philippe Crasso. They went to their second game against Nigeria, and like I mentioned, a Elephants of Côte penalty. Unfortunately, they lost against Nigeria. And then going into their third game of the group stage, a must-win match for them, they were embarrassed. 4-0 defeat against Equatorial Guinea, where they allowed Emilio Nsue to score hat-trick, to score 2 goals rather, and to just dance around and be proud of himself. And after that game, they were literally hanging on strings for their AFCON place to see if they could make it into the knockout round. Even before they knew whether or not they were going through, they already let their coach go. They said, nope, how do you lose 4-0 to Equatorial Guinea in our own country? They sacked him, they let him go. And then they qualified for the knockout round as the fourth best third place team. And they were drawn up against the defending champions, Senegal. Now, coming up against Senegal in round of 16, this was a game that a lot of people thought, no, Ivory Coast would lose this match. Some people like Smith Layi thought they would defeat Senegal. And of course, they did defeat Senegal on penalties. That game was one that, they had conceded an early goal in the 4th minute. And then to be fair to them, after conceding that early goal, they took charge of the match. They took charge of the affairs. But they couldn't get a goal. They couldn't score. And then in the 85th minute, Nicolas Pepe was brought down by Edouard Mendy, and then Frank Kessie was able to convert from the penalty spot. The game ended up going to a shootout, and they scored all 5 of their penalties to win the game 5-4 on penalties. They were then drawn up against Mali in the next round. Another game that they were essentially dead. Mali scored in the 71st minute with a fantastic strike by Nene. And a lot of people thought, oh man, Ivory Coast, maybe this is how they are going home. And then in the 90th minute, Simona Dingra scores a goal to equalize for South Africa. And then to make it even more dramatic, in extra time, in the 122nd minute, Omar Diakite goes and scores the winner for Ivory Coast. They said this time we're not going to penalties. And Diakite was able to score that goal. They won it 2-1 against Mali. Killed the semi-final, Ivory Coast versus DR Congo. And I think this was probably their most impressive match of the tournament so far. After struggling in 3 previous matches, they came into this game against DR Congo and they showed a little bit of quality. They showed their dominance. And then Sebastian Haller was able to get a goal for them. They won the game 1-0. And now, the 2 best teams of the tournament, I mean, if you get to the final, I have to call you the best team. No matter how many games you've lost, are going to be facing off on Sunday to hoist the trophy. Of course, the Super Eagles want to win it, but as you can imagine, the Ivorians playing on home soil, I'm sure they want to win it as well. So we are going to be in for a very, very tense affair. Smith Layi, what do you think of the road that the 2 teams have used to get to this final? What do you think?
Thank you for that, summary of their road. I just think that, one went through, it's like you are traveling to a destination. One have to go through Kafansha to this thing, in a very bumpy road. Imagine, Ivory Coast went to the finals, they have to fight to get to the finals. They are hosting the AFCON. They are sending them to Yamoussoukro. They sent them away from their own base because they did not perform well. They went to Yamoussoukro. From there to Bouaké. They have toured the country. Now to Abidjan. It's like the Israelite journey. And for Nigeria, I think it's pretty much straightforward. I think we're just shuttling between Abidjan and Bouaké. I think the first time we went out of Abidjan was we went to Bouaké. So I think that the journey for Nigeria is slightly more straightforward to the finals, but the Ivory Coast wasn't that straightforward. Imagine I have to wait till the last game of the group stage to know. I'm pretty sure that some of the players will have booked their flight, going to their club side. That I don't think this one is happening. But they have to wait till the last game, and imagine you don't even know your opponent until the last minute. You don't know who you are facing until the last minute. So they have to prepare for Senegal for like 2 days. It was tough. In fact, the Ivory Coast Instagram post, they did not even show their training. They used to show their training before, how things are going. But because they didn't even know maybe they're going to progress, they cannot even. They have to wait till the last game. And kudos to Morocco that sent them through. But when we go to some areas, I will tell you the reason why Ivory Coast is here.
Okay, Smith Layi, I'll turn it over to you now. I mean, Ivory Coast, we spoke about it before the first match in the group stage, about the rivalry that exists. But can you just refresh us? What is the history of this fixture between Nigeria and Ivory Coast?
I think, Nigeria and Ivory Coast is like, 2 heavyweights, not only in the West African zone, in African continent, and in world football. So, Nigeria and Ivory Coast, they have faced ourselves for so long. And it's been a very tough and difficult clash between the two nations. What's it called? Because of the cultural similarities in culture with Nigeria and Ghana, that's why a lot of people echo the rivalry between Nigeria and Ghana, because anything Nigeria want to do, Ghana want to do it too. That's why people actually want to echo that. Forget about the pre-colonial AFCON that they had, Ghana. They have not achieved up to Nigeria. But talking about the Ivory Coast rivalry, it's been a clash that, you've seen 10 drawn games. 10 drawn games. Ivory Coast won 9, Nigeria actually won 9. So it was a very, very tough game. Very, very tough clash. So let me just have already said a lot of things about the previous history. I just want to say a few things about the game. The time that Nigeria won AFCON, the 3 times, we have faced Ivory Coast. When we were the best team in 1980, we faced Ivory Coast in the group stage. We drew 0-0 in Surulere, Lagos. We went on to win the trophy. In 1994, they were the champions in 92. They were, we went to the similar penalty shootout too in the semi-finals. We won the trophy. In 2013, when we played against Ivory Coast in the quarterfinals, we beat them this time around on regulation time. We went ahead to win the trophy. So anytime that we play against Ivory Coast and we did not lose in an AFCON, I'm sure that we get to the final, we're gonna actually win that. So in 2006 we played them. In 2006 we lost. In 2008 we lost, and we didn't do anything with that. I think we finished third in 2006 and quarterfinals in 2008. So I will call them our lucky charm. And I will say this: they are also our destiny helpers. As a destiny helper, I will call them destiny helper. And the reason why is this: if Senegal is still in this AFCON, it would have been very hard for Nigeria to win this AFCON. That's why I say that Ivory Coast did the Lord's work for Nigeria by taking out Senegal. So I'm pretty sure that if we are playing against Senegal in the final, we won't be confident like this compared to playing against Ivory Coast. So they're like our destiny helper. They are doing the Lord's work. That's why they're in this final. They just help us take out one of the best teams so that, South Africa too, they help us with Morocco. So everything is just falling in place. That's why I think that, the final is destined for Nigeria. I think destined for Nigeria to actually win it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for capturing, the history of this rivalry. And I mean, I pray that they're actually our destiny helpers. As far as the head-to-head between the two countries, overall, we now have an identical record in our matches against Ivory Coast. We have 10 draws. Nigeria have won 9 games, and Ivory Coast have won 9 games as well. But in the recent meetings, in our last 3 matches, Nigeria has 2 wins, Ivory Coast has 1 win. One of the wins was in 2013 when we beat them on the way to our AFCON title, like Smith Layi mentioned. Ivory Coast win came in 2015 in an international friendly when they defeated us 1-0. And then, of course, the Super Eagles got a 1-0 win over Ivory Coast in the group stage of this current tournament. So it could either be Nigeria going, 1-up in the game on Sunday, or it could be Ivory Coast going 1-up in the overall head-to-head on the game on Sunday. As far as how the form of both teams have been performing, we have Nigeria coming into this game 5 wins in a row, if you include penalties. Other than penalties, we have 4 wins and 1 draw, but we eventually beat South Africa on penalties. Ivory Coast, on the other hand, have won 3 games in a row, obviously including penalties as well. Nigeria, 6 matches, no defeat. The Super Eagles have not lost so far in this tournament, whereas Ivory Coast have lost 2 matches already in this tournament. In Nigeria's last 9 matches, all 9 of those games have seen less than 3 goals. Something to note. In Ivory Coast's last 6 matches, 5 out of those 6 have seen less than 3 goals. So again, other than the 4-0 defeat against Equatorial Guinea, Ivory Coast games tend not to have as many goals. Same with Nigeria. The Super Eagles have been the first team to score in 5 of our last 5 matches. If you include the game against Equatorial Guinea, 5 of the last 6. So, and Ivory Coast have been the first team to concede in 4 of their last 5 matches. So, other than the game against DR Congo that they won 1-0, they've conceded first in all of their previous games. Take that what you want to take from it. I think, it can potentially be telling the Super Eagles, if we can get an early start, a fast start in the game against Ivory Coast on Sunday, it could be, a real chance for us to get the W and to win this trophy. Smith Layi, looking at the Ivorian side, we've seen a bunch of different players come up for them in different moments. In the game against DR Congo in the semi-final, like we mentioned, it was Sebastian Haller that was able to get them the goal. In the game against Mali, Adingra scored, Diakite scored. In the game against Senegal, it was Frank Kessié from the penalty spot. In the game against Guinea-Bissau, when they won 2-0, it was Seko Fofana and Jean-Philippe Crasso. So no Ivorian player has actually scored more than 1 goal. Who, out of all these players that they have, should we be watching out for, looking at this final game on Sunday that's coming up?
For me, I'm gonna go to like a funny, I'm going to have a funny side. It's Kosono. we should watch out for Kosono. The reason why I say it is because because I think it's going to serve its suspension with the semi-finals. It's going to be available for the finals. So I just think that if possible, why can't they just start him against Victor Osimhen? But on the serious note, I think that in my fight, it's a guy I really actually would respect a lot. I was one of his biggest fan when he was playing football. I think he played for Reading FC, and he was part of the Drogba's mates. When they were playing together in the national team. He used to be a right winger, very fast, a very handsome, right winger. I remember him those days. He did something that I really like. He realized that we can't have this type of big players, and we are struggling. So he did something. He removed Sangare, the guy from Nottingham Forest. He replaced him with John Marco Seri, is it? The guy called Seri.
Jean-Michel Seri, yeah.
Seri, yeah. Michel Seri, that plays I think in All City also. See, so he just to control the game. So if you look at their game down from the game they actually played against Senegal, they realize that their play comes from that guy. The way they dictate the pace comes from that guy. So I think it's going to be key to them winning the cup because everything is like the fulcrum of the team. So everything comes through him. He takes the boxes and everything. But this guy is also old too, 30 years of age. And he doesn't play full game anymore. So I think that he's a player we have to watch out for. I think so. Mark Seri, yeah, he's the missing link in their midfield. So he gives opportunity to Fofana and Frank Kessié to go forward. Yes, I think we have to watch out for him.
And let me ask you this question. When I look at the analytics of their game against DR Congo in the semi-final, they had 48% of their attacks went from the right-hand side. 29% from the middle and 24% from the left-hand side. So on our left side, which is their right side, we are not sure what is going to happen with Seydou Sanusi, whether or not he'll be back. So potentially Ola Aina might be playing there again. Do you think there's any potential for them to exploit that flank against us?
I think Jose Pacero would have think about it. And the issue is this. Even the game against us, they were trying to use that side. But when the coach changed Sanusi, he brought in Omero and he put Bassi there. No crosses came through that side again. Bassi was blocking everything. So, I think the coach should look for a way to actually how to plug the hole that might be coming from the left-hand side. But for me, I just think that they're going to be using Gradel there. the former Bournemouth guy that plays for, no, he plays for Gaziantep now in Turkey. So he won't play for Bournemouth in England. So he's like 36 years of age now. For me, I think that Ivory Coast, the guy called, the Ivory Coast, the Congo guy just not in for it because, for him to for the guy to run them ragged that day, I think that no, they were not actually in for it. I don't think that Grande can have that joy against Nigeria. I don't think so. That don't forget that all those guys in Dala, when they are, sometimes when they are firing, when they come to our side, the fire get quenched too. So that's why I'm not scared about Grande's threats.
Okay. I would say for me, honestly, my player to watch on the Ivorian side will probably be Adingra. If he does get the start, I think Adingra is a threat. He's a quality, finisher. He's pacey. He's young. He's energetic. He's one of the few players on the Ivorian team that that for 90 minutes will run around and will give everything. He's only 22 years of age, so he still has a lot to prove in his career. And the coach has been trusting him in the recent matches. Obviously he scored the equalizer for them against Mali. And I think if he does get the start against Nigeria, he's someone that we should just be careful of. He's going to be playing from the left-hand side, so maybe he's going to be up against Bright Osayi Samuel. So I'm hoping that he will do his homework on him. Osayi Samuel would not have the freedom to just bomb forward as much as he would like if Adingra is playing on that left-hand side, because if he leaves gaps, Adingra can exploit. I've been watching Adingra for a few years now since because he was a teammate of Victor Boniface. And then now he plays for Brighton and Hove Albion in the English Premier League. So he's a talented player for sure. That's who I just think the Super Eagles need to be careful of. And I think something else that is interesting for me to notice in the game against Nigeria, in the first match against Nigeria, throughout the 90 minutes, Ivory Coast largely played a 4-1-4-1 formation. They had their 4 center backs. They had Sangare playing deep. They had Fofana and Kessié in the midfield with Bamba on the left, or Boga on the left rather, and then Kwame on the right. But they were not too advanced. Whereas looking at how they played, specifically I'm looking at the game against DR Congo in the semi-final. They played 3 different formations in that game. They started the match playing a 4-3-3. With Seri, Fofana, Kessié in midfield, and then Adingra up front, left-hand side, Guardiola on the right, and Ale in the middle. In the second half, after the first 45, they came out and they played a little bit deeper. They played more of a 4-1-4-1 formation. So they brought Adingra and Gradel back. They asked them to drop back and to support in midfield a little bit more. And they kind of isolated Ale up front. Towards the latter stages of the game, probably from like the 60th minute, they switched to a traditional 4-2-3-1 formation with Kessié and Sangare holding the midfield, Adingra on the left, Guardiola on the right, and then they brought in this guy called Amani. They brought in Amani to play as the attacking midfielder in their side. And I mean, he played only about 30 minutes in the game, but I think he had a decent match. He plays for Saint-Gilloise as well, Boniface's former club. So I think that's just to show that their dexterity, their structure has kind of changed between their former coach and their current coach. So it could be an interesting thing to see how they are going to set up exactly when they face the Super Eagles in that final. Just something that I thought that was worthy of pointing out, that they are now more fluid in their formation and in the way they set up. Okay, let's look at the Nigerian side. Who are the players that you think Ivory Coast need to watch out for?
I think it's still Lukman. I think the way the South African set up did not actually really favor Ademola Lukman, but I think that we are playing against the West African side that likes to get into the physical battle. They want you to feed them. So I think that Lukman will be very key to this game too. And if possible, the team that beat them 1-0, he should repeat it again. But that time, don't forget, he didn't start Simon. If he could start Chukwueze too, and play Chukwueze, in a way that Chukwueze can be coming and be joining the midfield, the way he was doing in that first game, I think that they're going to have problem. See, let me just mention this thing. If Equatorial Guinea did not lose to Guinea Conakry in the second round, they will be playing against the Ivory Coast again in semi-finals. Beating Congo. It would have been Ivory Coast against semi-final. In fact, that game would have been fire for fire because he would have beat us 4-0. But what I see basically is that the template that we used to beat them in the first game, that was similar to what what's it called, Equatorial Guinea 2 used to beat them in that last game, because they realized that the midfield guys are not really mobile. So if we pass through them, it's going to be a lot easier. So I think Senegal failed to do that, the game they had with Ivory Coast. So I think that when I saw them too, I think we still have their number. Yes. So that's why I think that Lukman will be very key for this game. Maybe Lukman and Chukwueze.
Yeah. I will say I agree with you. I think Ademola Lookman, and of course Victor Osimhen, we can never forget him.
Yeah,
But I think Ademola Lookman is one that they have to watch out for. I'm pretty sure in most of our matches, if not all our matches, Lookman has been our biggest threat in terms of creating opportunities. Even in the game against South Africa, Ademola Lookman created 4 chances in that game. I think the next closest to him was 2 chances created. He obviously had the chance that Osimhen had in the final minute of the game. He had the one that Onyeka blasted over from edge of the box. He had an opportunity to score himself. So I think Lookman is going to be a threat. He's going to be somebody that they have to pay close attention to. And another thing that I give Lookman credit for is his ability to win free kicks, ability to also help his team out in defense. We give Osimhen a lot of credit for pressing off the ball and for putting pressure on defenders. But Ademola Lookman does a very similar job and doesn't get noticed for the job that he does quite as much as Victor Osimhen. So I think Lookman is going to be a troublesome one for them. And if the Super Eagles are going to get a win in the game, I believe that Lookman would play a part in that victory for sure. Okay, Smith Layi, let's talk about our lineup for the game. Nigeria, more than likely going to set up in a 3-4-3 formation, like we've seen in all our previous matches except the opening game of our tournament. Who would you like to see in the starting 11, Smith Layi?
I would like to see, the back three of Kevin Bassey, Semi Ajayi, and actually Williams with Ekong, starting Wabili in goal. I don't think nobody will drop from Wabili for Zone now. That's the obvious truth. The back, the 4 midfielders, I just pray that Sanusi can recover. That's my prayer. He can recover. So if Sanusi can recover, Sanusi on the left and not back to his right, then the 2 midfielders, difficult. Difficult. I'm tempted to go for Onyeka and and Alassane Yusuf. I don't know what, but I'll just say okay, Onyeka and Iwobi. But tough decision. Onyeka and Iwobi. Then on the right, then the 3 up front. I want Simon Chukwueze to come in for Simon. Then then Osimhen and Lookman to complete the lineup.
And I think I would largely agree with you. Nwabali, the most popular man in Nigeria over the last 24 hours, he has to be the one in goal. Ekong, Bassey, and Ajayi, no need to even break them apart. Just let them keep doing as they've been doing. They've been doing a fantastic job throughout the tournament. On the left, if Sanusi is fit again, I would like to see him there. Obviously, if you've been following since the start of the tournament, I was calling for Bruno earlier, but obviously the coach doesn't think Bruno can do a job. He hasn't even considered him for any of the matches. So I would want to see Sanusi back. If Sanusi is not back, then unfortunately, let me not say unfortunately, but it's going to be Olayi not there like we saw in the game against South Africa in the semi-final. On the right side, we're going to have, if Zedu is fit, it's going to be Olayi. If Zedu is unfit, it's going to be Bright Osayi Samuel. In midfield, I have to go with Frank Onyeka and Alex Iwobi. I know that Iwobi off the ball sometimes can be a little bit half asleep, but Iwobi's work that he does in moving the team forward, in progressing the play for the team, in advancing our attack, I think is crucial. And I don't want us to play the first 60 minutes without having somebody that can actually try to break the lines for us with some passes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why I think Iwobi needs to be in the starting 11. And then up front, I would say, hey, coach, stick with the same three that you've been having that have been doing well for you. I know Chukwueze might say, oh, I had a good game when I came on against South Africa, but I think he should go with Lookman, Simon, and Osimhen. If Simon isn't impressing, then maybe Chukwueze can come in the second half. But let him start with those ones. We all know the work that Simon does going back as well as going forward. And that's one of the reasons why he's always been a preferred player in the squad, because even when he's not doing too well in attack, you know that he's always tracking back and helping the team to defend. And then up front, of course, Victor Osimhen, even when he's not scoring, he's always a threat. He's always putting pressure. If they happen to start Kosonu, Victor is going to be breathing down his neck, you know. So it's definitely going to be an interesting one to see.
So before we go, I just want to ask you this question. The Ivory Coast team played with Willy Bolly and Njika, two left-footed central defender. Do you think the Congo people failed to exploit them? Despite that, so they were slow and they were left-footed. In fact, in that game, Njika even kicked Bolly in the face in that game. So, do you think that we can actually exploit that if it's the two? Do you think that that one can actually serve like be an advantage for us?
Well,
So?
the way I look at it is it all depends on how they are structured as a team defensively. If they are leaving gaps between their fullback and their center back, then yes, but it's hard to say the way we've been playing. It's hard to say, oh, we're really going to try to take advantage of that, because the way we've been playing, we don't really see our players coming directly at the center backs. Our attack, even though we develop from the middle, we tend to take it out wide once we get into the dangerous positions, and we're not really running at the center backs. So even if they do that, I'm not sure how much of a threat it is going to be. And we're also not a team that is really playing in long balls for the attackers running behind the defense. When we play our long ball, is for Osimhen to nod it down to somebody in the middle. So
Yes.
I don't really see that playing a big role in this game. I really don't see it playing a big role. Okay. Let's move on to our predictions. So, Smith Layi, we've spoken about everything, how they got here. We've watched these two teams closely since the tournament started. Now, it is the big one. It is the final match for the trophy. Who do you think is going to win?
For me, since the start of this AFCON, even before the start of the AFCON, when we failed to beat Zimbabwe in Harare, when we lost 2-0 to Guinea-Conakry in Asia during the warm-up, during the pre-AFCON warm-up, I said that Nigeria will win. That time I looked like a fool, but now we're in the final. So I'm going to stand by what I said. That Ivory Coast is going to be a lucky charm for us. The last time we were there, we played in the final. And now we're going to play in the final and we're going to win it. Nigeria to win the cup on Sunday.
And what's your scoreline?
I'm tempted not to go for any scoreline because I'll be getting scorelines wrong. I've not getting anyone right this AFCON. But I will go for a 2-1 Nigeria.
2-1 to Nigeria. Okay. And for my prediction, I also think it's going to be a close one. Like I said, it's two teams that are fighting so hard to win this competition. Nigeria, smooth sailing to the final. Ivory Coast, really bumpy road, but still getting to the final after coming back from the dead. But for this game, I just think that the Super Eagles are going to have more about them. I think the Super Eagles are going to win this game, and I'm going to predict a 2-0 win for Nigeria. And my prayer is that Victor Osimhen scores at least one of those 2 goals.
Yeah.
But I don't see the game having more than 2 goals.
For me, I just think that I don't see us keeping on that clean sheet. I think the 4 we had already, that's the maximum.
Okay, let us see what happens. And before we round off, let me just give you guys what the bookies are saying, like I've been doing so far in the tournament. For the game between Nigeria and Ivory Coast, I see that the bookies are expecting Nigeria, or are saying that Nigeria are favorite for the game with odds of 2.75 for Nigeria to win. Draw is 2.87, which means a draw in 90 minutes. And then Ivory Coast to win is 2.9 odds. So even though Nigeria are favorites, according to the bookies, we are only slight favorites, not overwhelming favorites for this game. Of course, if you want to bet on correct score, Smith Layi said 2-1 to Nigeria. That is 11 odds. I said 2-0 to Nigeria, also 11 odds. So whichever one you prefer, you can bet. But of course, as always, we are not refunding anybody's money if it doesn't come true. So yes, the final is upon us. Nigeria, the Super Eagles, vying for our 4th AFCON title, the first one in 10 years. But regardless, it's going to be an interesting match. And I really hope that the Super Eagles can win. Smith Layi, final thoughts before round off.
So, and I just want to be on a funny note. If you think that the impossible will happen on Sunday, that Victor Osimhen can be the top scorer on Sunday, you can. If you bet £1, you will get £100 on that one. But let me just on the final note, thank you guys for staying with us during this AFCON. We appreciate you for support. I can see the love and everything there. I've got a lot of messages when I was on my way to record this thing that said, when is this thing coming out now? I was like, just wait. He just played yesterday. I asked him to just wait that it will come out soon. So I want to appreciate all of you. I just think that this AFCON should end well for Nigeria. And I'm pretty sure that on Sunday should end well. And please, guys, don't put your mind on football too much. Don't put your heart on it too much. It's a game. The next AFCON is next year. And I'm pretty sure that you want to see the one of next year. There's Olympics this year. There's so many events that are going to come up this year. So just relax. Enjoy the game on Sunday. Chill with your family. Whatever they are calling the game, we take it.
And yeah, thank you very much for sticking with us. Of course, we will still review the final, regardless of what happens. Even if Nigeria should lose, don't worry, we will still come and talk about it. And then, of course, after the AFCON, we're going to continue to give you interesting episodes talking about the different happenings across Europe, across the rest of the world, as it regards Nigerian footballers. This has been the Naija FC Podcast, Nigeria versus Ivory Coast match preview. As always, I'm your host, AyoT, and I have my reliable co-host with me,
Smith Layi. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.